So Donald Trump's won the campaign, but now the battle really begins. What is his first 100 days of round two, season two, you might call, of a Donald Trump presidency? Well, before we even get there, we have a 75-day transition period. He won't be sworn in as president until the 20th of January next year. Now, this is what Donald Trump's closest allies admit they fluffed in 2016. He's got to appoint 4,000 new political roles at the very top of the US government. Some of them are quite minor, some of them are incredibly serious, like the head of the intelligence agencies and his new cabinet. Now, 1,200 of these roles will require Senate approval. Now, that's got a lot easier now that Donald Trump has flipped the Senate and the Republicans are in control, meaning he'll probably be able to get a lot of his picks straight through and into their jobs. Now, in 2016, he was scrambling around finding any old Republican, and lots of people who had opposed him even being the president or the candidate were put into jobs. That made his life hell as president, as we saw with his administration collapsing into bitter infighting and leaking. Then, on the 20th of January, he will be sworn in, and it's an in-tray from hell. At home, he's inherited pretty decent growth figures, but he's promised so much more. But there's a big chance he will have control of both the House of Representatives and the Senate by then, which will make life much easier in passing a budget. Now, that ties in directly to the issues on the border. Donald Trump needs a lot of cash very quickly to throw at this issue. He's made big promises about controlling migration, and that's going to cost money. Voters will expect quick results, and that's going to cost. Then there's the tariffs. He's promised an immediate 25% on all imports from Mexico. Now, that's been a big campaign pledge of his. I think it will probably go ahead. But what does he do with the Brits? And what does he do with Europe? That'll be his first big test of his relationship with his so-called allies. Is he going to really slap tariffs on the EU and slap tariffs on British goods, while at the same time asking them to contribute much more to NATO? So you can see a deal being cut there, I suspect. Abroad, you've also got Ukraine. He's promised to end the conflict. He says he's going to get on the blow at Zelensky, he's going to get on the blow at Putin, and he's going to get a big, beautiful deal. But that's going to cost money as well. If you read Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, he says the first thing you've got to do is make sure you're negotiating from a position of strength. That means more arms and more support for Ukraine. Now, that's going to be deeply unpopular with some of the Republicans who helped him get to the White House. But again, a deal needs to be cut there, because is he really going to want the first 100 days of his presidency once again to be dominated with the idea that he's soft on Putin? Then, turning to the Middle East, he's promised to make America the world police deterrent again. He's saying there's going to be no new wars, but people need to stop taking the mickey and start respecting America around the world. He needs to mend ties with Israel. The Biden administration and Netanyahu are barely even speaking, and when they do speak, apparently there's a lot of shouting. So he's got to sort that out before he can get into the conflict of Gaza and restore peace in the Middle East. There's going to be a reluctancy to give too much ground there, but Iran is watching. There's a major influence in the region, and he's been promised, like he was in the 2016 administration, to be very, very tough. As we've been discussing, there'll be some real nerves in Iran about his re-election. But then he's got the China, Russia, North Korea, what we call the crinks. They'll be watching for any sign of weakness, any sign of division in the Western alliance, any sign of NATO being sort of undermined by a Trump White House. So there'll be nervousness in Europe that they need to play a bigger role in NATO, while our enemies will be watching on, hoping it will all fall apart. So, first 100 days, no pressure, Donald.
I think the first thing he's going to tackle are going to be the global conflicts, Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Gaza. That's definitely kind of paramount. That's human lives on the line. And then after that, he's going to be going directly for energy. You bring down energy costs. I mean, the cost of an apple, the real cost is the cost of harvesting, fertilizing, transporting, refrigerating, marketing, and the cost of all of that is underlaid by the cost of energy. And that's where Donald Trump's very pro-energy policy comes into. You have this new AI revolution that's starting. Microsoft, for example, has reopened 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. Google is doing new builds for nuclear reactors because of the power required for these superclusters of the future. So bridge fuels, like Donald Trump has always been a fan of, natural gas, oil, critical to get us to that next stage. And I think that's going to be something he can maybe do very quickly. And I think RFK Jr., he's going to be able to be, dropped in as a sort of a nuclear bomb in sort of this overly like octopus kind of style of healthcare system we have that's tentacles everywhere, so confusing you can't figure it out, very expensive, and a lot of the food is making people sick and unhealthy. And you can quickly ameliorate that if you have all branches of government in agreement. You can quickly say, hey, the chlorinated chicken, that's banned. This is, you can do these kind of things. So maybe you'll see some of that. Look at the Department of Education. When they founded the Department of Education, we were ranked in the top two or three of education systems. You fast forward now, we're ranked like 27th. Our students are doing awful. And if you look at the DOE, it's a jobs program for incompetent adults. The amount of teachers and the amount of students is like this. The amount of administrators, it's insane. And you're seeing that in university administration, all that. So it's like when the Soviet Union fell and people said, "What was your job?" "Oh, I was here making sure you did your job, and I was here making you did your job." And that's what all these like bureaucrats have been doing, and they've been, bilking the taxpayer for a long time. And we don't want to be cruel. I think the idea is to give people a 2-year, 3-year furlough, pay them, go off and find something else to do. Be productive, be creative, do something positive. We don't need you to collate documents here as we move into an AI age. And I think that's going to be a huge shock for people to see a mentality of like tech focused acceleration coming from the Republican Party, something they've never seen before. I think that's kind of what helped him win the election, and that's is what's gonna earn the trust of the American voter if he can deliver those, his motley crew of Avengers into their proper roles, and they all deliver. Then you have, the people are giving him this mandate. He has to deliver. And so he needs to surround himself by highly competent people. And he's the first to admit in 2016 he didn't really do that. He brought in a lot of people who was recommended to him. He was new in politics. First guy who wasn't a statesman or a war hero to ever be an American president. And so now with the experience and with the 4 years of being very upset, let's call it, he certainly, I think, is going to come back and realize that he has to deliver, and he has to deliver quickly, or the enthusiasm will sputter out. So I think that those people around him are going to deliver for him.